Being bumped down the pecking order when you go to the website.
It's my favourite source for royal news, and quite right, not that we're biased. Harry said in his BBC interview that he was forced to step away from royal duty due to security concerns. I thought Harry and Meghan had decided to...
Prince Harry just got hit with something no royal has faced in over a century. A quiet move in the House of Lords, one that barely made it to the mainstream headlines, has exploded into what could become the most humiliating moment in Harry's already strained relationship with the monarchy.
Apparently, palace officials have been trying their hardest to strip Harry of his titles, but
behind the polished doors of Britain's upper chamber, whispers have turned into action. The kind of action that doesn't just cut ties, it erases legacy. Sources close to the royal institution claim that members of the House of Lords are now seriously discussing whether Harry deserves to keep his title, the Duke of Sussex, and not just discussing it, but citing a wartime law buried in the history books as the weapon to take it all away.
Yeah, I agree.
So we are in total agreement. They are very dependent on each other.
It's not just ceremonial. Losing the title would strike at the heart of everything Harry and Meghan have built. Their identity, their brand, their royal credibility. And reportedly, when Harry found out, he went off. Private sources say his reaction behind closed doors wasn't just emotional, it was volcanic. The kind of fury that suggests even he didn't see this one coming.
Meghan of their royal titles. The New York Post is reporting that locals in the UK say enough is enough, especially after Prince Harry's disastrous BBC interview, which aired.
But what pushed the House of Lords to make a move now? Why dust off a law used to punish traitors during a world war and aim it at a man who simply walked away from tradition? Is this about honor, punishment, or something else? And if they actually go through with it, what happens next?
Is planning to strip Harry and Meghan of their royal titles when he ascends to the throne.
Let's start where this all began, a shadowy push in Parliament that could become the most ruthless royal move of the modern age. It started, as many royal bombshells do, with a whisper. A single article from a fringe social source claimed the House of Lords had held a closed discussion about invoking the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917, a law that hasn't been used in over 100 years, specifically to strip Prince Harry of his title, the Duke of Sussex.
And to finally strip Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their HRH titles. Riley Sullivan.
At first, it seemed too stupid to believe, but then bits of confirmation started trickling in. Quiet acknowledgements, carefully worded responses from royal commentators, sudden silence from Buckingham Palace. And that's when the speculation turned into wildfire. The UK press latched on. Royal insiders hinted that there was growing appetite among traditionalists in the Lords to hold Harry accountable.
I just find it very uncomfortable, and I think a huge number of your viewers would agree, that you either respect the system.
Not for a single act, but for what they called a pattern of public damage. The Oprah interview, the Netflix series, Spare, and his repeated jabs at the crown. One anonymous lord reportedly called Harry a runaway prince turned celebrity critic. Another was quoted saying that he's benefited from the institution he's spent the last 3 years trying to tear down. What made this moment different? Timing. The king's reign is still new. Prince William is increasingly stepping into a leadership role, and within the upper circles of Parliament, there's a hunger to show that loyalty to the crown still matters, even if that means making an example out of a Windsor. It's not just a social move, it's deeply personal, because the House of Lords doesn't usually meddle in royal family drama, but this was the first time in decades that members were reportedly drafting an actual motion, a move to begin stripping Harry's title through formal legislative means. And when the press started poking around, they didn't deny it. No outright dismissal. No palace statement saying, "This isn't happening." Just silence. The kind that speaks louder than any denial. So what exactly is the House of Lords using to threaten Prince Harry's title? A century-old piece of legislation called the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917. Passed during the chaos of World War I, this law was originally designed to deal with British royals who were, quite literally, aiding enemy nations. At the time, them, several royals had German ties, and Parliament wanted to make an example out of them. So they created a legal pathway to revoke their dukedoms, honors, and affiliations with the crown. Fast forward to 2025, and somehow that same law is now being discussed in connection with Harry. Now, let's be clear. Harry hasn't committed treason. He hasn't sided with a foreign enemy. But the argument being floated by some lords is more symbolic than criminal. They claim Harry has, quote, publicly undermined the integrity of the monarchy, sought personal profit through criticism of the crown, and severed his obligation to the nation. And under the language of the act, vague and broad as it may be, that could technically be enough to start the process. The mechanism is complicated. The motion would need to pass through debate. It would have to be signed off by the sovereign, King Charles himself, and likely challenged legally. But here's the real kicker. The public doesn't get a say. If the lords and the crown agree, it happens. Period. So why revive such a dramatic law now? According to one analyst, it's less about legal precedent and more about signaling a change in how the monarchy will handle dissent moving forward. In other words, a royal warning shot. Even if the move fails, the fact that it's being discussed at all means that Prince Harry's position isn't just controversial, it's officially unstable. And for a man who walked away from the palace, but not the power that came with his title, that's a dangerous place to be. While the House of Lords was stirring up headlines, something very different was reportedly happening behind palace walls. According to multiple sources, some from within the royal press pool, others claiming access to the Sussex's inner circle, Prince Harry's reaction to the news wasn't just disappointment, it was rage. We're talking about a full-blown eruption. One insider described Harry's response as a moment of betrayal that pushed him past the breaking point. Another claimed he felt blindsided and humiliated, not just by Parliament, but by his own family's silence. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. When rumors began swirling about the Lord's push to strip Harry's title, no one from the royal family stepped in to defend him. Not Charles, not Camilla, and certainly not William. Behind closed doors, Harry allegedly demanded clarity. Was this just a stunt, or was the palace giving silent approval? Sources close to the Sussexes say Harry believes this move isn't random. He sees it as a coordinated punishment for breaking ranks, for writing spare, for airing dirty laundry. And what's Meghan's role in all this? Reports claim she was the calming force, urging Harry not to respond publicly, not to escalate. But that's not how Harry operates anymore. This isn't the 20-year-old prince keeping his head down. This is a father, a husband, and a man who's built a global identity outside of the monarchy. And now, all of that, the Sussex brand, the Duke title, the perception of royal legitimacy, is at risk of being shredded in the court of public opinion. There's even speculation that Harry reached out directly to his father, seeking answers. If that happened, the palace isn't confirming it. And that silence? That stings more than any headline. Because in the royal world, silence isn't neutral. It's strategic, and Harry knows it, which is why some insiders believe the real betrayal didn't come from Parliament. It came from his own brother. As the drama around Harry's titles unfolds in the public sphere, one man has stayed eerily quiet, Prince William. But don't mistake his silence for disinterest. According to royal commentators, William isn't just watching this unfold. He's orchestrating his own long-term play behind the scenes. And it centers around the most symbolic titles Harry and Meghan still hold. His and her Royal Highness. They don't use those titles anymore. That was part of the original Megxit deal. But, and here's the key, they still technically hold them. And William, according to recent reports, is quietly planning to strip them for good the moment he takes the throne. One palace source described it as a quiet resolve. Not revenge, not pettiness, just royal protocol. William reportedly believes that the monarchy cannot move forward while former working royals profit off their titles from abroad. And Meghan, she's always been at the center of this divide. From the Oprah interview to the Spotify and Netflix deals, she and Harry have repeatedly leveraged their royal past. But for William, who's always walked the tightrope of duty and tradition, this is a red line. So while the House of Lords debates stripping Harry of Duke of Sussex, William may be waiting for the perfect moment to finish what Megxit started, by removing their HRH status permanently. What makes this so powerful isn't the act itself, it's the silence. William hasn't commented, he hasn't argued, he's just watched the backlash against Harry grow, knowing full well that the public tide is starting to turn. The strategy? Let Parliament look like the aggressor, let public opinion fester. Then, when the throne is his, this. Act decisively. It's a move that would split the brothers forever. But to William, the institution comes first. Always has. And in his mind, this isn't personal. It's royal. Titles in the royal family aren't just ceremonial. In today's world, they're currency. And for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex label has been their most valuable asset since the day they left the palace. It's on their book deals, their Netflix contracts, their philanthropic ventures, their introductions at high-profile events. Strip that title, and the identity they've carefully built over the last 5 years doesn't just take a hit, it unravels. That's why this isn't just about family or honor. It's about branding, leverage, and long-term influence. Consider this. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex sounds official, prestigious, royal. Even if Harry and Meghan aren't working members of the royal family anymore, the title keeps them tethered to that world. And for fans, critics, and global media, that tether matters. It makes their statements feel weightier, their presence more powerful. But if the title is removed, suddenly they're private citizens with a royal backstory, not royal figures. Imagine the impact on their business ventures. Would publishers still frame Harry's next memoir as a royal exposé? Would networks keep handing out multi-million-dollar deals to a former prince who's no longer officially a duke? And then there's perception. In a world where optics are everything, losing the title could be framed as a public rejection, not just by the monarchy, but by the country it represents. A quiet, legal exile. It also raises a deeper question. Who is Harry without the title? Without Duke? Without Sussex? Would the public still care? Would the media still chase him? Or does this mark the start of a slow fade from global relevance? Not because he chose to walk away, but because the door behind him is finally slamming shut? As news of the House of Lords' rumored motion spread, something unexpected happened. The internet erupted, and not in one direction. On one side, royal loyalists cheered the move. To them, Harry had crossed too many lines, from the Oprah interview to Spare, to publicly dragging his family across media platforms. These traditionalists believe that stripping the title is not just justified, it's overdue. If you abandon the crown, you shouldn't carry the name. One viral post read. Another simply said, play royal games, lose royal names. But the backlash was equally fierce. A younger, more global audience rallied in Harry's defense. To them, this wasn't justice. It was retaliation, a calculated punishment for speaking out. Social media hashtags like Chow Juri Chow Chew Hands Off Harry and Chow Let Them Live began trending, with users calling the move outdated, performative, and even oppressive. One popular post read, imagine fleeing a controlling workplace and still being legally punished for it years later. It's not just online discourse. Polls began circulating, asking whether Harry should keep his title, and the results showed just how fractured public opinion has become. In the UK, older generations leaned toward removing the title, but globally, especially in the US, support for the Sussexes remains strong. This cultural divide reflects a larger shift. For some, the monarchy is about tradition and image, and Harry violated both. For others, it's about modern values, honesty, and emotional truth, and Harry represents all three. There's even a third group emerging, the disillusioned, people who once followed the royals but now see it all as theater, with titles, press leaks, and public punishments played like a Game of Thrones spin-off. And in the middle of it all, Harry and Meghan, trying to keep control of a narrative that's no longer entirely theirs. Because when the public starts taking sides, the truth gets blurry, and perception becomes more powerful than reality. So here's the question that's baffled millions. Can the House of Lords actually strip Prince Harry of his title? The answer? Technically, maybe. But it's messier than you think. Let's break it down. The Titles Deprivation Act of 1917 does give Parliament, and by extension, the House of Lords, the ability to remove certain peerage titles. But the original intent was to punish royals who literally supported enemy nations during wartime. Think espionage, military betrayal, not Netflix deals and memoirs. Still, the language in the law is vague enough to be twisted, and vague laws can become powerful tools, especially when backed by public opinion and palace silence. Now, here's the catch. Any such motion would likely need approval from the reigning monarch, which means the decision would ultimately fall into the hands of King Charles. And that's where things get murky, because while Charles has tried to position himself as a modern monarch, trimming down the monarchy, distancing from scandal, revoking his own son's title would be nuclear. It would send a global message. The family comes second to the crown. Not only that, but legal experts disagree on whether peerage titles, like Duke of Sussex, can be revoked revoke the same way HRH styles can. Some say yes, others say it would require new legislation or a special royal order. And if Harry decides to challenge it, we're potentially looking at a public legal battle between a prince and the British government, with years of press coverage, legal grey zones, and constitutional questions. A spectacle the monarchy would do anything to avoid. But that's the point. Just talking about revoking Harry's title is a strategic move. It's pressure, it's intimidation, and most importantly, it's a message. A warning to every royal, current, or future that stepping out of line doesn't mean freedom. It means exile. At the surface, this all looks like a squabble over a title, but underneath, this is a battle for control, over legacy, identity, and the future of the monarchy itself. Harry didn't just leave the royal family, he exposed it, he published stories, aired conversations, questioned its power structures, and in doing so, forced an ancient institution to look in the mirror. And now, the institution is striking back, quietly, systematically. Whether or not his title is officially removed, the very fact that Parliament and the press are pushing this narrative shows a dramatic shift. The monarchy is no longer content to ignore its dissenters. It's learning to eliminate them. What's even more telling, this isn't just a family affair anymore. It's become a global referendum on royalty itself. Is the crown still a symbol of tradition and dignity in the 21st century? Or has it become an exclusive club, policing its image at any cost? And Harry, love him or hate him, is at the heart of that debate. Some see him as a traitor, others a whistleblower. But one thing is clear, he's no longer just a prince. He's a symbol, a test case, a warning, a spark. And if this is how the monarchy handles the spark, what happens when the fire spreads? So let's recap. The House of Lords is allegedly exploring a 100-year-old law to strip Prince Harry of his Duke of Sussex title, a move that would cut deeper than any public criticism ever has. At the same time, Prince William is waiting in the wings, reportedly preparing to remove Harry and Meghan's HRH styles when he ascends the throne. Harry's reaction? Explosive. Meghan's response? Calculated. The palace's stance? Silent but powerful. This isn't just about legal authority or royal protocol. It's about image, identity, and punishment. The crown may be polishing its throne, but it's also sharpening its knives. And for Harry, the stakes have never been higher, because if the Lords succeed, if the monarchy pulls the trigger, what's left of the prince who gave up everything and lost even more trying to tell his story? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, the war inside the palace walls is far from over, and the world, it's watching.